शिला गुरुदेव की जय, श्रीमन महाप्रभु की जय, श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंद हरि बोल. So, good morning to all of you from Raleigh here in North Carolina. Now we are continuing with our series of lectures about Vaisnava etiquette. Today we are in our meeting number 9. So our 9th meeting, we will be continuing with our study of the concept of Sadhaka-deha, the context of Vaishnava etiquette for sure. So today's our second meeting where we will be speaking about how to properly honor the fact that we have received such a gift called Sadhaka-deha, and how that it plays out in the context of Vaishnava decorum. So let's make some brief recap as usual of what we were studying our last Friday, in this case, last week, where we began sharing some ideas, discussing about the very concept of Sadhaka-deha. And we introduced our topic by reminding ourselves about the fact that Vaishnava etiquette deals in itself with, or teaches, instructs us about how to deal not only with sacred personalities, sacred people, if you will, Sri Guru and the Vaishnavas, but also with sacred items or paraphernalia, if you want to use that term, like the body, if you will, in this case. So Sadhaka-deha actually is connected to both ideas, sacred items, sacred people, because we have received such a gift from very sacred personalities, Sri Guru, and the item in itself is a sacred one, coming from such hands. So we are to deal with it in a proper way. So we share some ideas in order to understand what's a Sadhaka-deha. We also, of course, first we need to understand what's a sadhaka. So as we mentioned, sadhaka means someone committed to sadhana. As much as we are committed to such an ideal, we can consider ourselves sadhakas. And a sadhaka is someone in between, body, jiva, conditioned soul, and a siddha, a perfected enlightened being. We gave the example of being lost, being found, and being at home, respectively. Bada Jiva referring to a lost soul wandering in samsara, sadhaka being a found soul who has not reached home yet, but has been found by the interception of divine descent, if you will. And siddha, of course, refers to someone who has reached home, if you will. So even though sadhaka has not reached home yet, it's already a glorious, if you will, a glorious journey back home, in the words of Srila Prabhupada, back to Godhead. So it's a very glorious, a special, unique chapter of our anadi existence, or our beginningless sojourn in this material influence. Now we are having been rescued and we are being taken back home, if you will. So a sadhaka is someone who is really, as much as one becomes aware of the glory of being a sadhaka, if you will, and of the reach and depth of the gift, of how the divine is extending itself to us through sadhu sangha and allowing us the opportunity for bhakti. As much as all those things, we are aware of those, naturally we will try to take advantage of the opportunity. And in this way, as much as we do that, we can speak in terms of being a sadhaka. As much as I engage in sadhana, I can speak in terms of being a sadhaka. And sadhana, as we also mentioned, has to do with exclusively contacting the sense objects with our senses, with our body, solely contacting the sense objects only for the pleasure of Bhagavan. That's a very principle of being a sadhaka. I will contact sense objects for the pleasure of Bhagavan exclusively. And in this way, I will be, if you will, pouring, as Guru Maharaj will say, pouring bhakti samskars on our Sadhaka-deha, further purifying, spiritualizing such a body. The pores of the Sadhaka-deha will be pouring bhakti samskars by interacting with sense objects, with the senses of our Sadhaka-deha in the context of bhakti, not in the context of bhukti, exploitation, not in the context of dry dismissal, or mukti, or gyan, or tyag, nor bhog, but bhakti. So again, being a sadhaka is glorious, even though with all its ups and downs, there are glorious ups and downs. We share this conception of charming disaster in that context. It may have some embarrassing moments, but since the context is so glorious, even that embarrassing chapters will be charming eventually, will result charming for Krishna himself. To say in the scripture that Krishna himself becomes astonished by seeing the sincere force of his devotees. And we may, of course, include sadhakas there. So to be a sadhaka and from sadhaka to become a siddha, all this is a gradual process, lots of shades of gray in between. So it's a gradual transubstantiation, if you will, from matter to spirit. We quoted some words from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he explained how it's not that the Sadhaka-deha is fully nirguna, fully transcendental to the modes of nature. So there is some gunamaya section, some section is still affected by the gunas as much as we, again, do not interact with the sense objects in the context of bhakti. But as much as we do so, by the grace of bhakti herself, we can speak of our Sadhaka-deha in terms of nirguna. And of course, eventually, when all those things are fully in place and we have done our homework, the Sadhaka-deha, of course, is said to have the potential of becoming 108% spiritualized, 108% worshipable. And that's what we see sometimes when the body of pure devotees are put into samadhi. I will share some examples of how Mahaprabhu related to Sanatana Goswami in connection to his Sadhaka-deha, to Haridas Thakur in connection to his departure from this world, and how he worshipped those bodies, and how he expressed basically the potential that his Sadhaka-deha has to become fully worshipable for Bhagavan himself. So in this connection, having this in mind, of course, we should speak in terms of I am this body. Not only we are not this body, of course, on some level that's totally necessary to understand. We are not this body, but by this we refer to a separate selfish conception of the body, but we actually are our Sadhaka-deha. As much as we are able to identify ourselves with such gift, eventually that will give rise to a Siddha-deha, and that will constitute our eternal, ultimate spiritual identity. Also, we mentioned this important point, I consider at least, that the Sadhaka-deha is not ours, even though we may speak in terms of my body, my Sadhaka-deha, etc. Strictly speaking, as we say, Sadhaka-deha is a gift bestowed by Sri Guru in the moment of initiation. And it's not a gift that belongs to us. Generally, we think in those terms when someone gives us a gift. Oh, it's mine now. I can do with that whatever I want, however I like. It's for me, it's in my service, and so on. And in this case, this gift belongs to Sri Guru, belongs to the Swarup Shakti domain, and it's putting under our care, if you will. But it's a gift, it's an extension of grace, costless grace. So it's a gift. We cannot deny that. But the point is, how will you take care of something that do not belong to you, but at the same time is the highest possible gift you could have received? So you will really take care of that in the best possible way. You will use it in the proper direction. So that's expected from us as sadhakas. We should conduct ourselves in this Sadhaka-deha with that awareness, and trying to take care of Sri Guru's gift, of Krishna's mercy through sadhu sangha, and understand these type of gifts can never belong to us. Real gifts, we made that point, can never belong to us. But actually we belong to them. Those gifts are of such quality such substance is there, that we are to belong to those gifts. We are to belong to Krishna's grace. We are to belong to the sadhu. We are to belong to those who are extending those gifts into our life. So it's a gradual process of upgrading and changing the way we'll think and look at things in terms of controlling, exploiting, belonging to me, and putting it upwards, the opposite direction. Instead of thinking what does belong to me, thinking who I belong to, basically. So those were some of the ideas we shared in our previous lecture as a brief recap that I think it's important to have in place and continue ruminating on. And so that was more of an introduction actually to the concept of Sadhaka-deha, but I think it's crucial to have that type of sambandha or orientation, knowing how to relate with it. So whenever we hear some practical advice about how to relate to the Sadhaka-deha, we will understand them in better context. So today we will be sharing some more practical tips, if you will, after having established on one level at least the glory, the ontology, if you will, of the body that is accompanying us, the sacred one. So we will start sharing, again, certain type of important, I think, advice about how to take care from this body, how to properly honor this gift. All this in the context of the daily, if you will, schedule of a devotee, starting with the waking up, and all the things that come after waking up, like having a bath and putting tilak and certain purification and other topics in connection to how the day of a devotee is conducted. Of course, I will share some very general idea. The day of the devotee is not the same. Every devotee is different, and the timings of each one's life are totally different. But I will share some basic general recommended points to consider, and each one of us will have to adjust that according to each one's desha, kala, patra, time, place, circumstance. Also, something that I would like to clarify in advance is that many of these considerations are actually not necessarily nirgun in themselves. They are not fully transcendental in one point, but maybe more connected to a sattvic lifestyle that will create the proper departure platform, if you will, like a plane flying towards transcendence. So as we know, in some cases we need to be sattvic, we need to overcome rajas and tamas, the lower modes, and from sattva have a clearer understanding, a more balanced perspective of life, and from that being more whole as humans even, we may be better equipped in order to pursue transcendence. So some of these items are in that level, if you will, just not to over absolutize them and make them fully transcendental in every sense of the term necessarily, because it's not that so. Not necessarily this is Swarup Siddha Bhakti, inherently devotional practices, but lifestyles, habits, and recommendations for our lifestyle that will, if properly understood and embraced, will foster a healthy devotional culture. And many of these rules, as you will see, or rules or advices, whatever you may like to call them, revolve around the concept of cleanliness, and go hand by hand with purity, which is one of the four, pillars of dharmas. The Bhagavad presents them, sometimes also referred to as the four regulative principles, which actually, when we say no meat eating or no whatever intoxication, actually what we are saying is yes to something. When you pronounce the four regulative principles, it's not so much about not doing something, but about doing something. And in order of doing something, I will avoid those things that will go against that. So when we speak about no meat eating or not illicit sex or no intoxication or no gambling, actually we have to go to the very gist behind that, the principle behind it, which is culture, the positive attributes such as austerity, mercy, cleanliness, and so on, and truthfulness in this case, which again have those practices that we avoid to engage in may help, but that's not the all in all. It's not that because I'm not gambling, I'm fully truthful. I mean, I may not go to the casino, but I may lie in some other way. So the point is, try to go beyond the very. I can be vegan, vegetarian, and only eat pran, and I can maybe not be necessarily fully merciful. So we should go to the really idea of these practices. So in this case, we will see that lots of emphasis has to do with this idea of cleanliness, purity on a physical level, and that's going up in more subtle realms. But generally, we need to establish certain level of sattva in our daily habits again to create a better, as I say, platform towards transcendence. So I will share some ideas. I will share what the Shastra says about this, the ideal standard for doing certain things. And again, the ideal standard is not necessarily sustainable for everyone, but we can make adjustments in order to gradually get closer to a better embrace of each of these practices. So let's begin with the very first thing we will do when our day begins, which is waking up. And in connection to waking up, it has to do with sleeping, because if we wake up, it means you were sleeping. So let's share some ideas regarding our daily resting in this connection. And again, bear in mind all this in the context of Sadhaka-deha, all this in the context of trying to take care of that gift, trying to take the best possible advantage in the context of bhakti. Here we are not presenting any out-of-date paranoia from ancient times, which has no application to our modern day. It has to do with really intuitive and commonsensical considerations to properly honor this sacred gift. So let's speak about sleeping, if you will, and our waking up and so on. So of course our day, as I mentioned, starts with waking up, but of course that will depend how do I wake up and how to wake up ideally in the best possible way and mood and timing. All that will depend on how did I sleep in the night and what did I do the previous night, if you will. So let's make that clear first, if you will, before starting speaking about what to do when you wake up. We could say what to do before you go to bed. So you can wake up in the best possible way, because everything is really connected. At least for most of us, we are not just fully Paramahamsas, Avaduts that can go to bed at any time and wake up at any time, and we are totally beyond the gunas. So we should consider these influences. So the idea is to wake up in the best possible way. Ideally, we should have rested in the best possible way the night before. And in that connection, in order to consider that, I mean, there are some things that we may mention. For example, try not to have a very heavy dinner. And again, all this is totally adjustable in the sense that I know that for some devotees, according to their dynamics at work, their main meal would be dinner. In my personal case, I do not have dinner at all, but because I have another timings. So, but again, I'm sharing some idea, and from that, each one will make the proper adjustment according to their case. But ideally, if you can choose and you can organize your day, try not to have a very powerful, heavy dinner at night, because at that time the digestive fire is not very active. So you won't be able to fully digest that. And if you go to bed with your stomach still full, that won't be very becoming for your resting. And sometimes they have this saying that says something like, you should like have breakfast like a prince, you should have lunch as a king, and you should have dinner as a beggar. So ideally, that's the point. No? You can have some breakfast, of course, but at that time still the digestive fire is not that powerful. But midday, when the sun is right on top, that's a moment where the digestive fire is more active and able to digest. So ideally, those things help to regulate our daily stance. It's not just that I eat whatever I want, whenever I want, and it doesn't affect me, and I do what I want. It doesn't work like that, as you can see. So on one side is try to, as much as you can, adjust the amount of prasadam you honor at night. Of course, needless to say, if you can adjust this, try not to go to bed too late, That's also another point. We know that according to the gunas, we have to speak about the gunas, and the gunas are presiding on different moments of the day. So sattva has mainly to do with the morning, rajas with the day, and tamas with the night. So in tamas we go to sleep, which has to do with tamas, basically, inertia, if you will. So the night is mainly designed for sleeping. Again, if some has some exception because of work or something, you have to be awake at that time, that's another thing. But the general advice is this: try not to go to bed too late. Even it is said that in Ayurveda and other considerations that before midnight, if you go to sleep before midnight, each hour is like 2 hours, if you will. If you sleep from 9 to 10, from 10 to 11, that hour actually is like 2. So you can have better rest. That's my point. And I think you have the experience. If you go to bed at 2 in the morning, if you will, even though you have slept like for 12 hours, you will feel I have not rested that well as if you go to bed, I don't know, at 9, 10 and wake up after, I don't know, 7, 8 hours. You will feel I rested better, even though in quantity was less hours, in qualities it was much better. So we are speaking about here also the quality of the time, not only the quantity. So as much as we can, again, we should make some adjustments in that connection. And of course, each case is specific about how much to sleep. Beyond the quality, let's speak about quantity. Some devotees may need, according to their particular bodily features and whatever necessities in health, to sleep less, to sleep more than others. So we are not here to compare with each other and establish some universal standard on how to sleep. Of course, there is some, I think, common sense about, I mean, I don't think that it's healthy to sleep 14 hours per day for anyone. At least some extreme exception to a rule, but generally someone may need to sleep a little less or more than any other. We cannot imitate the Goswamis and just sleep whenever we are reminded that there is something called sleep, or sleep just 1, 2, 3 hours per day. Anyway, each one has to pay attention to one's body, if you will. Krishna in the Gita is saying one should not sleep too much nor too less, one should not eat too much nor too less. Everything is about being regulated, being balanced, being sattvic. And sattva means finding that middle point, which is sometimes not so easy. But the point is, too much sleep brings laziness. Too little sleep brings laziness. Try to get the point. We are speaking about two different extremes, but the end result of both is the same. If you sleep too little, it's laziness in the way that you will be falling asleep along the day. And you sleep too much, that brings drowsiness and laziness in another form maybe, but it's laziness in the same way. Some type of disturbance. The same if you eat too much or too little. Again, the extremes are not ever recommended. In the middle point is when we really learn. We really are balanced to really take advantage of whatever is happening. Also, if you can, the recommendation is given that you may sleep pointing towards the east, which is the cardinal, I think you say in English, the cardinal point, the direction where the sun is rising, the east, and sometimes poetically described as the direction of the gods, where many things come from the east, as you know. So if you can organize your bedroom to sleep in one particular direction, I won't go neurotic and throw you in a frenzy regarding Vastu and how to design your house. But if you can make some arrangement, the east is the most recommended direction for subtle reasons that when you sleep, you will have a better resting again. Or if you cannot sleep in that direction, the second, if you will, recommended direction is the south. So generally one can fix one direction or the other. At least they say not so recommended to sleep towards the west or towards the north. Again, some adjustments. Do not go neurotic with this, thinking that you will be thrown to Patala Loka if you're sleeping into the wrong direction or something like that. Another health recommendation, if you will, given in the context of sleeping is not to sleep, facing down. I don't know how to say this in English. with your face down to the bed. That's not that recommended because of many reasons, because of pressing your body in a not very healthy way, because of not having proper air to breathe and so on. So ideally you should sleep like looking up or one side to the other, whatever. Again, I don't want to control your life to the utmost detail and which is the direction you are sleeping. but basically those advices are there. And of course, if you play them out, you realize, oh, they are working. I mean, there is a purpose to this. This is some science to it, coming, of course, from revealed literature. So there is a science to it as well. What else? Well, before going to sleep, at least personally, I will recommend also this crucial moment when your day is beginning or where your day is finishing. The day is finishing, but you are entering into another chapter when you go to the oniric realm, into the realm of dreams. So it's nice that you may try to close the day, trying to invoke, if you will, some specific bhakti samskars that may join us, if you will, be accompany us during our dreamlike state. Of course, you cannot fully control that, so many things happening in the unconscious and so on, but one can try to do one's best in order to get closer to auspicious influences during that moment. For example, Srila Prabhupada said once that it's recommended that before you go to sleep, when you are already maybe in bed and you have some minutes before falling asleep, you can meditate and reflect about all your day, like an introspective moment about how you dealt with your day, and trying to learn from that, not just allowing the day to pass without reflecting back on it. We were speaking the other day here with one of the devotees about that. I was asking her, so what made your day worth living today? Because if you just go to sleep another day, go to sleep another day, and do not stop to really think, okay, which was the purpose of this day? What did I receive today, and so on. So it's a nice moment before going to sleep for a while, for some minutes, to reflect on how we conducted ourselves on that particular day, learning whatever has to be learned, being grateful about whatever has to be grateful, and continuing to the next day, if Krishna wants so, of course. Also, one can pray. I like to do that also when I'm going to sleep. I'm try to pray in the sense of, okay, as Prahlad Maharaj will say to his child school mates, he will say, well, a human being is almost spending at least a third of their life sleeping. Let's say that approximately human being sleeps 8 hours, some sleep less or more, but let's put this 8 as an average. That's 1/3 of your day. So if you multiply that, that's 1/3 of your life, basically. So we spend considerable time in that realm. So it's nice that at least we can take some advantage there, because we are still alive. It's not that we are dead or nothing is going on. So we may pray before going to sleep to Bhagavan, please bless me that now I'm entering into the realm of the unconscious. For sure, many impulses will activate that are beyond my present awareness. So bless me and give me shelter and give me guidance so I may continue rendering seva to you, to the Vaishnavas, while sleeping, because I'm still alive. I may travel who knows where. So let my mind, let my subtle body, let my whole being travel in the proper direction during this time, and hopefully acquire further bhakti samskars. And even I may transcend or work on certain issues that I may not be aware while being awake, but while entering into that realm, whatever has to happen. I mean, not in a neurotic way and trying to control the whole situation, but it's, I think, a nice way of really doing that with awareness, and that will create some impact on how we pass our night. Sometimes the devotees also choose to have some background music along the whole night. When I say background music, in this case, I may refer to, for example, some soft japa of one's guru, or some acharya chanting japa, or some transcendental sound vibrating in the background. It depends if that helps you. And I've tried once to put Harikatha on the background during night, but it didn't work for me because I was not able to go to sleep. And I became more aware about what was being said. And maybe I was going to sleep and I woke up in the middle of the night and someone was giving Harikata, and I was not able to sleep, basically, not too much. So each case will depend. You find your best formula, if you will. But it's interesting because sleeping is entering into the realm again of the subconscious. And in that realm, we absorb many things that we may not be able to absorb from the conscious side. So we can invoke some prayer before going to sleep to be blessed in that direction. And of course, needless to say, trying to go to the updated version of Vaisnava etiquette in our modern technological times, hopefully, at least hopefully, the last thing you do before going to sleep is not checking your cell phone, nor the first thing you do when you wake up is checking your cell phone. And it sounds simple, but I have to say that because I know that that's the standard for most people, and maybe for most devotees. I don't know. I'm not sleeping close to most of you, but I live in community, and I sleep in one room with many other people on many occasions, and I see that in some cases that's the case. And of course, you may say, yes, Maharaj, but I'm reading something. Okay, I mean, it's your sincerity, of course, but try to understand my point. Sometimes it goes beyond that. So we may just develop this type of addiction, if you will, or habit that as we mentioned, some scars create habits creates personality and a whole sense of being. So it's nice the first thing I do, the last thing I do is not being with the cell phone, but maybe praying, offering pranam to Guru and Vaishnavas, glorifying them, being thankful for that day that is finishing, for that day that is starting, whatever. I don't need the cell phone for that. So that on one side. From another point of view, I think you may know this, but generally it is mentioned, and the clothes we use for sleeping, the word that it's generally used is gets contaminated. I know that this word contamination is a little bit awkward for some, but the point is that it's understandable, I think. Now, if you are 8 hours in bed sleeping with a particular clothes, ideally, the idea is that those clothes are not being used for the rest of the day. They carry certain tamasic influence because of being sleeping. You can realize that. So ideally, one should change clothes when one is waking up. And of course, we will mention also having bath and some other things ideally. But ideally, you should have some clothes that you use for sleeping, or if you are using one clothes, like in my case, that I don't have too much of a closet, but I always using the same clothes. So whenever I use this particular clothes of the day, dhoti, kurta, in the night I'm going to sleep, I will sleep with that dhoti, kurta, and I will put new ones the next day and so on. So something like this. Again, advice is to try to remain as sattvic as possible, as free of rajas and tamas as possible in every single sense, and in this way being more able to grasp the clarion call of transcendence. Also, the other day I remember someone asked, I think Archana Siddhi, about the nap, what to do with the nap. And again, has to be adjusted according to each case. But I think you may imagine that 2 excessive naps per day, it's not the most healthy thing in life. It is said generally that if you sleep more than an hour during the day, it creates a particular influence that again, it will depend each case, but as a general rule, sometimes it's said that if you sleep more than an hour during the day, if you have to enter, I don't know, the altar or cooking for the deities, ideally you should have bath if you sleep, again, that period of time or more. Maybe you can sleep 40 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on the case. In my personal case, really every time, I practically never sleep during the day because I know how it affects me. Even if I sleep a little bit, I become really drowsy. But each one will have their own particular makeup, if you will, and necessities, of course. If that's a necessity, take the nap you need for sure. So some of these advices are also recommended there. So let's go to the waking up. All this was mainly connected to the sleeping moment, which is again crucial in connection to how we wake up. Ideally, how we project again everything. Not in a forced way, not in an erotic way, but in a very natural way, a nice, healthy way. Gradually, we should start to conceive all of the different moments of our day as seva. I'm not going to sleep. Hopefully, I'm going to render seva in that particular form called sleep. The potential is there. I mean, we have the potential. Bhakti is so generous and so all embracing that it has the potential to become part, if you will, of every single activity in my daily life, starting from the most ordinary ones, as Thomas Merton will say once. No? Your salvation starts in the most ordinary moments of your daily life. How you connect those moments with the most extraordinary thing. How the highest thing reaches down to the bottom, top bottom, and from there purifies everything, if you will. So here we are speaking about considerably ordinary things in general, sleeping and all this stuff, going to the bathroom and so on and so on. But trying to connect that with bhakti, how to behave when sleeping, how to behave with going to the bathroom as a sadhaka. There's a way of doing that, of conducting ourselves even when entering to the bathroom. But again, not as a mechanical paranoia, but as a way of, in a very sensitive way, attracting further and further mercy. And we need that. At least I need that. So after some considerations regarding sleeping, let's go to the waking up, which is really crucially connected one to the other. So as I mentioned, ideally, when you wake up, first thing you do, hopefully, is not taking the cell phone and see how many likes you have in Instagram and so on. But try, first of all, first thing you do is recommended in the scriptures, remember your guru, remember Sri Krishna, your Istadev, and pronounce some glorification of them immediately after you wake up, like a way of immediately putting the day in context. It's very crucial what you do right after you wake up and right before you go to bed. Those things will really like put in context all the things that will happen in between. If you do that on a daily basis and you create a natural habit of that, you will see that that creates a very particular influence. So you can pronounce some prayers. There's not some specific one that you have to, but there are so many. So you may choose whatever prayer you may like, a verse or something that comes as a natural expression of your gratitude for a new day. And Krishna is giving me life, extending my life in this Sadhaka-deha, at least for one more day. Let's see tomorrow. So if I have this day, I will try to use that in the most possible way. So thank you so much for such a gift, if you will. So trying to start again, create that initial kick start, if you will, samskar. Conceive myself as a servant. Generally, if we wake up and you just grab your cell phone to check which news are there, that won't help that much to conceive yourself as a servant. But on the contrary, that in a very subtle way that may create an impression of you are the master, you are the controller, you are the knower, you are the enjoyer, or whatever. So first we can wake up, we can offer obeisances to our guru, to pronounce some glorification to the Vaishnava, to Hari, Guru, Vaishnavas. But again, all this not in a niyamagraha-like way, just imitating, just performing that mechanically, but trying to make some effort in trying to, again, proceed towards this idea of I conceive myself as a servant. That's the identity I want to fully embrace from day to night, to give some orientation to my schedule from moment one. My cell phone will take my identity somewhere else, if you will, generally. So some recommendation, that connection. For example, regarding when to wake up, of course, again, we mentioned each one will have different schedules and necessities, but if we want to mention what's ideally recommended in Shastra, for example, Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sanatana Goswami's books on, in great part on Vaisnava etiquette, he invokes the classical concept of Brahma Muhurta in this connection. So he will say one should rise early in the morning during the Brahma Muhurta. And then he says, in order to completely purify his existence, one should meditate on the lotus feet of his spiritual master as if they are placed upon his head, one's head. One should offer prayers to his spiritual master or her spiritual master, and then remember Lord Krishna by reciting suitable slokas. So basically what I mentioned. But this is what Sanatana Goswami mentioned. I like the idea of you wake up and you meditate on the lotus feet of your guru on your head. That's the very point of offering pranam. You can offer, I think. I mean, I do that, and that's really helpful. Just when I wake up, first thing offering pranam to my Guru Maharaj, invoking his pranam mantra, and offering pranam. Sometimes also it's recommended to the rest of the parampara, at least still certain number of members. It may take quite a while to offer, but to remember all these personalities is to invoke auspiciousness over and over again. So he mentions here this idea of Brahma Muhurta. So what's Brahma Muhurta for the ones who do not know? Has to do with the period of the day in the morning, even before the sun appears. It's 1 hour and 36 minutes, before the sunrise. So the day is divided in these periods, many muhurtas in this way. The Brahma Muhurta has to do with this moment, 1 hour and 36 minutes. It's not a fixed time because depending where you live in the world, sometimes if you live in Finland, I think the sun won't be appearing always at the same time along the year. So according to other places, it will be a more fixed time. But the point is approximately 1 hour and a half before sunrise. That's a very special moment, a very mystical moment. Many things are saying in the scripture about that moment, the devils coming to earth and so on. But the very point here is at that moment, the world is still sleeping, at least around where you are living. On the other side of the world, it may be midday. But the point here, and I hope you get the gist of it, is the environment is resting and you're waking up. The world has not awakened with all its movement and all its influences that, like it or not, it creates some effect on most of us. So the sage, Krishna says that in the Gita, in the second chapter of the Gita, verse 69, he's saying this, like what that thing that is the night for the wise is the day for the murka, for the fool one, and the day and the night of when the unwise person goes to sleep, that's the day of the sage. Like, of course, you can take this verse in many levels, on the three main levels usually: literal, interpretative, and esoteric. From a literal meaning, it means an unwise person is just going to the discotheque at night, if you will. Go to degrade him herself at that time when the wise is waking up in Brahma Muhurta, if you will. On an interpreted level, it means the day and the night means to what I am awakened to and to what I am sleeping to what I am attentive to what I am distracted to. So what is day, what is brightness for a wise is darkness for the unwise, and vice versa. And of course, in a more esoteric way, we can even take that, but that may be too much, to the Braja Lila and the Madhurya Rati of the gopis, and how for many in Vrindavan, the day is starting and lots of auspicious omens are there for the gopis, for Sri Radha, her associates, close, intimate servants. That's not very auspicious at that moment because that implies Radha and Krishna, who have been together all night, have to be separated now. So lots of pain. Of course, it's auspicious in another sense. It's fully nourishing rasa and creating vipralamba in order to increase the joy of sambhog, of union. But as one my Guru Maharaj say, for sadhaka, Mangalartik and Brahma Muhurta is very auspicious moment of the day. For the Siddha, like this example, is not that auspicious. Oh, a day is coming, the sun is coming, Rasa Lila is over, whatever. Of course, at the end, it's all auspicious, but it takes a particular form in the Siddha platform, if you will. So Brahma Muhurta has to do with this, a special moment in the day where it's a prominent influence, I will say, of sattva are really, and also will open to the Visuddha Sattva influence at that moment of the day. Then there will come the morning, sun rising is sattvic, midday it will be rajasic, and night will be tamasic, as we mentioned. So there is some influence in the environment, and I'm sure if you are able to wake early in the morning, having good resting, and you have your sadhana, your chanting, your practice in the morning, you will feel the difference along the day. And that's a very important thing there, that you try to do a good part of your sadhana in the beginning of your day as much as it's possible. Again, if you can organize yourself and choose that, Brahma Muhurta and this morning time is really what will determine in great part how the rest of the day will be conducted. So we will speak about that further when we uh, approach the different practices of sadhana and so on. So there are more things to share. Let me share some few more ideas, and I think we will have to continue speaking on this topic on our next meeting. So ideally, if you are sleeping, of course, this may take different forms if you're sleeping, living in an ashram, monastic ashram, I mean, and you may be, I don't know, in my case, I remember living as a brahmachari for 16 sannyas, like for 10 years, and we were sleeping on the floor. We have some mattress, some mat, yoga mat, and something to sleep on. But when we woke up, we will put that out, and the whole room will become something else, if you will. There were no beds or stuff like that. No? So the point is, if you are in such a situation, it's obvious that whenever you wake up, you will put all this stuff somewhere else, and you will clean the place, if you will, leave it clean. Of course, if you are living with it, you have a bed in your room and whatever, you don't have to hide the bed somewhere. But at least you should have some order in the room and some cleanliness as much as is possible, because again, all the things have to do with the gunas, um, and they may affect us somehow or other. So what follows generally is you wake up, and after doing these initial rites, if you will, invoking some prayers, offering pranam and so on, generally going to the bathroom is what follows, and eventually having a shower and so on. In my personal case, and I know that there are many Vaishnavas who also do that, and of course I've learned that from them, I do not necessarily always, or almost never, go right immediately to the shower after I wake up. But what I do is immediately after I wake up, I chant some rounds. Of course, between waking up and chanting some rounds, I go to the bathroom for a minute. I wash my hands, I wash my mouth, I wash my face, and I chant before having shower. I chant some rounds, 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 8 rounds. Then I have shower and I continue chanting and other things that we will continue speaking. So that's also an interesting practice that I have adopted last year or so. That is interesting because again, it's just waking up and almost the very first thing you're doing is you're chanting. So that creates some interesting bhakti samskars and some interesting effect for the rest of the day. Again, the very first thing we do when we wake up, and also in connection to the rest of the day will be conducted. But again, between waking up and chanting, in my case, or in the case of those who do that, yes, you go to the bathroom. Generally, you may need to go and pass urine or stool, depending the case, but at least washing your hands, because you will touch Japamala, worship your teeth, your mouth, washing your face a little bit, because you have just awakened. You need some awakening process, if you will, because you cannot just take the Malika being 100% contaminated, if you will, in the sense of without any type of cleanliness in between. So at least you can have that basic cleanliness if you want to chant a little bit. And after that, yes, one can go to the bathroom and all the different duties waiting for one there, and eventually shower. But all the things, we will speak about that as well as what follows that, like tilak and achaman and so on. But I think I'm almost in time, so I wouldn't like to overextend myself, but let's share some brief words regarding the bathroom. Some words regarding the bathroom before the shower. And we'll finish today's lecture just right about to enter shower, if you will. So, okay, so once entering the bathroom, so once, of course, maybe passing urine or stool, whatever, after urinating, not only in the morning and every moment of the day, ideally, you should always wash your mouth and your hands. And that's like basic cleanliness. That I would say that because at least if you have never learned those things from the Vaishnava tradition, probably you are not accustomed to do that. That happens so many times. I notice that when I'm in an airport or something and have to go to the bathroom, and after that, of course, I'm going to wash my hands. Of course, that's already a unique experience, mostly for the rest of the people, because not only seeing me with these clothes, but in my case, having the upavita, having here on my right ear, which has to do to say in the right ear, sacred rivers are passing. So by having the upavita, the thread on there, the thread is not contaminated by whatever you do in the bathroom. But you can imagine people take some look to what's going hanging down on my on my right ear. So that's another thing to consider if you are using upavita. In case you are not, of course, you don't have to think about that. But yes, you should wash your hands. You should wash your mouth when you are passing a stool, which is considered, if you will, a little bit more, again, using this word, more contaminating practice. Ideally, it is recommended you should have bath, or at least you should wash your hands. You should wash your mouth. You should wash, in this case, ideally, your face, your feet, and your private parts. Again, as much as you can apply all this, but at least some basic foundation of cleanliness. It's important because, again, there are substances that are coming out from the body, and this creates certain influence. Basically, it has to do with that, maybe with many things that we are not even able to see with our eyes, but may create certain influence of a particular guna that by invoking that level of cleanliness, we won't be affected by that. For example, if you're passing a stool, also if you're cleaning yourself after that, your private parts with water. Some people in Western world use paper, but it's not that of a clean, if you analyze, it's not that clean of a clean practice. You cannot clean yourself that much as if you are using water. So in case you're using water, ideally you should use your left hand for washing your private parts. Generally, the left hand is conceived for all the things, for washing the body and so on. And ideally, the left hand is mostly conceived for giving or receiving sacred items like prasad, taking the malika, the japamala, taking shastra. All those things should be done with the right hand, ideally. And one should receive those things with the right hand. And left hand is mainly conceived for cleaning the body and so on. Of course, if you're living in with other people, most of us are doing, whether you are monastic or not. So it's not only your bathroom. So ideally, and even if you live by yourself, you should try to maintain a level of cleanliness, especially in the bathroom, which is an area that easily gets dirty, if you will, or contaminated. So you should leave the bathroom as clean as it was when you enter, or even more. I remember once I was visiting one temple in Chile. It was like 15 years ago or so. And I entered the bathroom and there was one sign there. So it say like, if you see untidiness in this room, Krishna is showing that to you and he wants you to put that in order. And of course you can imagine you had a look to the room and it was not very tidy. So maybe it was they put that sign in a strategic way. But the point was, if you look something is dirty and you see that, it's because Krishna is wanting you to do something with that, to take responsibility for that. That's a nice way of conceiving. Of course, maybe not necessarily you will have the time of doing that at that moment, but it's a nice way to really, especially if you go to the bathroom. And again, it's not that we have an obsession with cleanliness, or we could say a healthy obsession in that case. Srila Prabhupada would say that cleanliness is the closest thing to divinity. So it's like a way of, again, getting closer to the idea of purity, even if you begin from the grossest level, body, bathroom, and blah, blah, blah. But all that creates a particular environment that helps you to enter into higher and more subtle levels of cleanliness, if you will. And I'm giving here a very general and hopefully user-friendly approach to it. If you go to Hari Bhakti Vilas and really go through all the different rules and details about cleanliness, that can be too much for most. And of course, many of those things have to do mainly with a particular time and social system and culture and relative details that can and are to be adjusted to our present time. But you will find, yes, like, I don't know, regarding washing different parts of the body, Hari Bhakti Vilas speaks about doing that many times per day, but many times per day, and a strong emphasis on socha, on this cleanliness. Yoga Sutras also speak that about in their Jama Niyamas, socha, like cleanliness. It's important. And that has to do not only, of course, with mind being clear, but body and so on. So Hari Bhakti Vilas will say those things, that Grihastha has to clean this and this in this part of the body, this and this time of the day. Brahmachari has to do that 2 times more, and sannyasi had to do that 4 times more. And of course, if you play that out, it implies that you may be spending like half your day in the bathroom. But the point is, they want to try to go to the point here, that is purity and cleanliness. That will help. That will help. So again, bathroom should be a clean place. Ideally, the floor and the different parts of the bathroom should be cleaned regularly. The door of the bathroom should always ideally remain closed. And needless to say, but I will say nonetheless, we should not introduce or enter into the bathroom with sacred items. For example, we shouldn't enter to the bathroom with our japamala. We shouldn't enter to the bathroom with sacred books, shastra. We should not enter to the bathroom even with these like Harinam chadars that sometimes devotees say have, that it contain the holy names there written. You should not enter them to the bathroom. You should not enter ideally to the bathroom with tilak. I mean, you can have tilak in your face, but not with tilak bar and put tilak in the bathroom. Ideally, that should be done outside, as we will speak next lecture about tilak. We should not enter with any sacred item, ideally, to the bathroom. Even if you have, I don't know, ideally, again, and all this help is for us to help to conceive the sacredness of the things. And we are not entering there to the bathroom. Even if you have a t-shirt or something that has spiritual motives, ideally, the spiritual illustration, that shouldn't be entering to the bathroom. And of course, I don't want to go to extremes, but again, try to get my point. I remember always this nice story of Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj when he was in Jagannath Puri, I think so. And he was, again, like almost 100 years old. And at one point, one devotee went there to have his darshan, And this devotee was having these like very nice t-shirts of, I don't know, Jagannath. I think it was Jagannath. He was in Puri. So all Jagannath, like round symbol on faces, Jagannath in the t-shirt. And when Srila Puri Maharaj saw the devotee, he did not only saw the devotee, he saw Jagannath coming to him. So he immediately tried to wake up. He was 100 years old and trying to go to the floor and offer it dandavat to Jagannath. For him, it was not just a t-shirt with a cool design. It was Bhagavan himself. So my point is, sometimes we may not, of course, we are not Srila Puri Maharaj and we can imitate him, but it's nice to get the idea behind this situation, because sometimes we may have these devotional illustrations everywhere in our malika, in our clothes, and sometimes we may have a t-shirt of Jagannath, but we take it out and we throw, I don't know where, and Jagannath is there. Maybe if you wash that in a machine, I mean, again, I don't want you to get neurotic or to throw all those t-shirts if you have those. but at least to understand the point behind this. Beyond entering the bathroom, all this stuff, how to deal with sacred items, how to deal with everything that resembles us, that makes us remember our beloved. My Guru Maharaj always quotes, and with this I'm finishing, this line of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita that he once told me. I consider this line like the Paribhas Sutra of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which says, and he uses to sign his emails or letters with this, Gadopakari Smritiya Priyanam. Gadopakari Smritiya Priyanam, which has to do with in the moment when Krishna, well, it's a long story to tell, to give context. Krishna is basically fainting in ecstasy in separation from the Brajavasis. And at one point, Narad Muni says, excuse me for having invoked those remindings in you. Krishna at that point was out of Vrindavan in the narrative. So Narad Muni was sorry by seeing Krishna experiencing, going through like what it seemed like epileptic seizures or something in the context of experiencing separation and so on. So Narad Muni is asking forgiveness from Krishna. So he says, sorry, excuse me for having thrown you into a pool of separation. And Krishna says this line, Gadopakari Smriti Aprina, which means one's best friend is that person who reminds one of one's beloved. So of course, this is especially connected and applicable to great personalities, sadhus, who really embody this reminding in us. But I will extend that idea to those elements, or images and items that somehow or other are there to act as udipana or stimulant, that are reminding us about our Ishtadev. There are some images, some designs. So again, there is a way to deal with them. So ideally, going back to the point, the bathroom, we should not introduce them, put them inside the bathroom. So some ideas today. There's more things to share. We will continue speaking about bathing ourselves and brushing teeth and doing achaman and tilak. But I think we will leave that for our next lecture. So we can also have some extra minutes in case that anyone may have some question in this connection. So I will allow for the option of unmuting in case anyone would like to present any question. The option is already available. So are there any questions?
Maharaj, I have a question.
There is some echo there.
Going, okay. My question is that, so Lord Chaitanya was trying to hold his tongue in the bathroom and not chant because, you know the story. So Gopal Guru, little boy, told him that gave him permission to do that. So the holy name is non-different than these sacred items in terms of, so can you just make a comment about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say that regarding Harinam and chanting Harinam, particular Harinam, we could say there is this special concession that Mahaprabhu is given. He says like, Niyamita Shmaranena Kalaha. There are no hard, fast rules to chant Harinam. Of course, that's in a general way, because as I mentioned, we are not to enter the bathroom with our japa mala and chant our japa in the shower, for example. People like to sing in the shower, but you should not chant your japa in the shower. But you can chant kirtan in the shower. That's you can invoke Harinam. This example, thanks for sharing it, from Gopal Guru. Mahaprabhu eventually say, oh, you are my guru, so your name is Gopal Guru, by having instructed me in this way. So Mahaprabhu wanted to make a point, and of course, a further point was made on top of that. So Mahaprabhu wanted to make this point of, you enter the bathroom, be careful how do you behave that, and especially in connection to sacred items. And when he was trying not to chant Harinam, and it was difficult for him to stop doing so that's already a point there. Gopal Guru said, okay, yeah, but the sacredness of Sri Harinam is such, if you will, in this particular age, and especially coming from you, Mahaprabhu, that you can chant Harinam, not in japa format, but you can engage in kirtan in such a way that there are no Harafas rule for that. So the sacredness of Harinams overrides the contaminatedness, if you will, of a place like the bathroom in this particular case. But that is not so for other mantras. For example, you are not expected to chant your Diksha mantras, Gayatri, for example, in the bathroom and so on. But you can chant Harinam. And you can, of course, invoke. That's a way of also conceiving, of course, this is if you will, if you want to think of the bathroom as a contaminated place, you also like to be protected from any possible contamination in that contaminated place. So a good way of doing so is to invoke Harinam. And even while having your shower, if you will, you can do kirtan. I like to do so, to do kirtan, or generally, or I hear some Harikatha, loud volume, or I chant some series of prayers like the Gopi Gita or some other series of verses from the Bhagavad that I may know. I like to invoke them when we're having the shower. We are not yet in the shower moment, but I'm giving some trailer for that. So I will say, yeah, with Harinam in the form of Kirtan, which is again the Yuga Dharma, and there's a special concession, there is a special dispensation, a special grace, a special empowerment. So we can embrace from that direction, from that connection. But these other formats or ways of conducting ourselves in the bathroom, again, it has to do with increasing our appreciation of what we are doing. We have also the famous example of Gorkishore Das Babaji, who was chanting in one bathroom. He hid himself in a bathroom chanting japa. And you may say, you won't go to Gorkishore and say, you cannot enter into the bathroom with japa. He was not into a bathroom, he was somewhere else. But as much as we still think I'm entering into the bathroom, so you should have some consideration. Whenever you are absorbing another level and you are forgotten that you are going to the bathroom, that's another thing. So yeah, for that particular expression of Harinam, we have that through that lila that you are sharing, this special concession, as well as reciting pranam and glorification and chanting verses. We can do that in that format. You won't enter with the book to the bathroom and so on. So something else. I hope that helps.
Maharaj, I just
Yes.
wanted to tell a story. Mr. Maharaj,
Maharaj, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell a story that one time when I went to see Prabhupada, we were the Sankirtan devotees. We went into the bathhouse because we just wanted. I can't remember if we ate prashadam or if we just passed urine, but his sister was in there, Pishima, and we were washing our hands, and she kept pointing to the ground when she was looking at me, and I was like, I didn't know she didn't speak English, so I didn't know what she was doing, and I just started to walk out, and then she would pull my arm back, and I couldn't go, and then she just kept pointing to the ground, and I was like, I didn't know what she was saying. I just kept like, I don't know. And then I'd walk out and she'd pull me back in. And finally, I got it. I'm supposed to wash my feet. So I washed my feet and then she let me go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The wash feet in India, especially everywhere, but in India, especially emphasizes, I think most of the people go barefoot more often than anyone else in other parts of the world, if you will. So in many places, if you are to enter into a temple, even for example, first you have to wash your feet, not even beyond our own tradition. So again, the implication is you are, and again, also regarding the bathroom, sometimes that's an extension of washing your hands, washing your feet. Of course, if you are in a particular situation, it's impractical, it's difficult, at least you should wash your hands, your mouth, if you are going to the bathroom. So there are nuanced varieties of this according to time, place, circumstance, culture, and different standards of that, even in India and even in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, according to each particular mission, they will have some special stress in this or in that. So it's important, again, not to go neurotic with this, but to enter in contact with the sensibility of that, like trying to maintain this idea of cleanliness, of purity. But that may take different forms, such as the one you have shared, which is, of course, I don't think it's anything too extreme, if you will, and not that impossible as compared to other recommendations that, as we will share, may seem a little bit more difficult or impractical, especially if we are living in the Western society and with certain dynamics in the family and the world. So one should, again, learn how to take the principle of that, and the details can be accommodated according to each one's situation. But thanks for sharing the story. Very nice. Pishima ki jai. So something else before finishing? Any other question?
Maharaj, I would have two questions, if you
Yes,
permit that. You mentioned that we shouldn't naturally chant our japa in the bathroom, but what about the bed? I've heard that the bed is tamasic since we sleep in it. Is it okay to sit on the bed and chant, not lying down, but sitting on the bed?
Well, personally, I will prefer not to do so. When I mentioned that I chant just right after I wake up, I didn't mean to see that I do that on my bed, but actually, I mean, I don't say that you imply that also, but I wake up, I go to the bathroom, and I sit somewhere else in an asana or something. So again, these are degrees. It's not black or white. It's not that, oh no, if you chanted japa in the bed, your rounds were not worthy at all. There was no effect. Everything was totally tamasic. I'm not saying that. But it can have some effect if you are just sit yourself in that place where you were sleeping, and some vibrations are there, if you will. Not to go mad, but if you can, I would recommend that if you can have the possibility of having some other place to sit apart from your bed, you can do so in some asana and so on. If because of circumstances that's the only place you have, maybe you can put some cloth above where you were sleeping and you can sit on that. Again, there are details, but yes, you will be able by common sense to perceive if that's creating some particular influence in one direction or another or not. But I think if you wake up, you go to the bathroom, clear yourself, and you go back to the bed and you just wrap yourself with all the different items you were using for sleeping, for example, all this stuff like sheets and so on, that will create some effect. So maybe you can sit in some other place next to the room, next to the bed, but some other place, some asana. Or if not, you can have some cloth there. Second question.
Thank you, Maharaj. My second question was that you mentioned that there are many different verses or mantras that we could recite first thing in the morning when we wake up, but could you give some examples of what kind of mantras or verses would be suitable for this?
Well, generally these are verses connected to offering pranam, to offering our obeisances. For example, in my personal case, I wake up and I recite the pranam mantra of our Guru Maharaj in his, while offering pranam to him. Then I offer pranam to the rest of the parampara, Prabhupada Chilasridhar Maharaj and Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Gaur Kishore, the Babaji Bhaktinath Thakur, and so on, with reciting the most generic mantra, Vanchakalpataru, and so on, and offering pranam to other Vaishnavas. Then I offer pranam to the to the 6 Goswamis, Bandharupa, Sanat, and Bhatta Raghunath, Jiva Gopal Bhatta. Then I recite Panchatattva mantra, then I recite Mahamantra. This is some way of addressing Panchatattva and Radha and Krishna, if you will. Of course, again, there are many pranams. You can recite pranam mantras to Krishna, Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, or to Sri Radha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, or to Mahaprabhu, Namo Mahavadanya is there, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, all these pranam mantras that are there for each one. But again, it has to do with one's intention and one's focus, but that's an example. But I don't want, last thing I want is just like to make you feel this is how this should be done and you have to do like I'm doing, nothing like that, please. But just sharing some ideas about how you can start your day glorifying your guru by some of the classical mantras, or maybe if you don't know any mantra, at least, again, the important thing here is that your heart is in the proper place while offering that particular prayer. You may feel some special inspiration to offer some particular prayer of glorification, but generally that will be, you can offer pranam to Guru, Vaishnavas, Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Panchatattva, whatever, Radha Krishna, Krishna Balaram, depending the case. So we know there are main pranam mantras for them, so one can offer that as one feels that inspiration. Okay.
Maharaj, Sumati has something.
Okay, let's go with Sumati. Last question, I think, for today. And if in case there are more questions, we can save them for the next meeting. Tell me, Sumati.
A question. It's in relation to what you were saying about taking sacred things into the bathroom, and I just want to share a little story. When I was in the Boston Temple and Prabhupada had come there, and there was a man's bathroom on one side of the hall and a ladies' bathroom on the other side of the hall, and some hooks on the wall between the two bathrooms. So devotees would hang their japa beads. Usually they're bead bags, but sometimes just their beads on those hooks before going in the bathroom. And so Prabhupada saw some beads hanging, not in a bead bag, just loose japa beads hanging on the hook. And there were actually tears in his eyes. And he was saying to some brahmacharis that were near him, "Whose beads are these?" He said, "These beads are crying." He said, "Your japa bead should always be either around your neck or in a bead bag close to your heart."
Jai,
Just wanted to...
Thanks for sharing. For sure, you don't want Prabhupada to shed tears. So that's a nice story. And of course, I plan to share some details about how to conduct ourselves with the beads and so on when we will speak more in detail about japa and chanting Diksha mantras. But of course, this is also in connection to the bathroom chapter. So that was really accurate. So yeah, that's also a nice way of again, and not to go paranoid, but just to get this sensitivity of if you have a feeling for these sacred items, Tulsi Maharani and the japa beads, and how you will relate to that. That should be the dearest things in your life. So you will hold them in a very special way with a special care and have a special place for them as you have the deity in the altar and not just thrown there, if you will. So many things in our daily lives are like deity likes, if you will, the Shastra and the Japamala. So they should be treated accordingly, basically. That's the main idea, that all these rules and regulations are there to foster a proper awareness and orientation and appreciation of the sacredness of everything that surrounds our life as sadhakas, and that will in turn promote love, rules promoting love properly, hopefully. So thank you very much to all of you today for your time. Hope this was some interesting discussion, and if there are any further, again, questions or doubts, please save them for next meeting. In this case, again, next meeting will be on Friday again, because on Thursday we have Sri Nityananda Triyodasi, so we will have lecture from my Guru Maharaj in the morning. So in the morning, at least, depending where you are. But so next lecture will be on Friday, just only for this next time. And after that, we will continue again with Mondays and Thursdays. So thank you very much. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai, गौर प्रमानंद हरि बोल। वंचा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।